dogs and that coyote.
All right. So, as you can see, we've moved in front of the British fort. Okay. So we're gonna start focusing more on the British stories. Okay. The British took over the peninsula from the French in 1759. Rather than try to restore the old fort, which had been burnt, they built a new one. So, once again, trying to find stories, we reached out to different people. Some of our maintenance workers have been here for 40 years. So we asked them if anything strange has ever happened. And one story got back to me, and what he had said was that it was the end of the season, it was almost the end of the day, and I was getting ready to leave, and they got a phone call. And he said that I answered the phone, and it was another site asking to borrow equipment. Now the equipment they wanted was up in those barns. So when you guys came in, you saw our workshop. So he had to go all the way across the property to get it. So he said, I got in the Toro, but the gas was pretty low. So he made a mental note to fill it up when he got back. As I was coming down the hill by the pavilion, he looked out and he said, I saw a figure standing down on the rocks by the shore. Now, generally fishermen come in and use the shoreline to fish, but at this time of day, he thought it was strange, and he didn't see a fishing pole. So he just saw a figure standing down on the rocks. As he got down in front of the museum, he heard a noise, almost like a groan or like a shout. But the thing is, there are geese that are always down on the shoreline. So he thought that it was just a goose or geese who were just flocking down there. So I continued on, and as I got to the barn, he opened the door. He said I took out the equipment, but he said it seemed that it took a lot longer because when he got done and got back in the Toro, it was dark out. So he said I went to turn the Toro on, and there was nothing. He was out of gas. So we realized he had to take the mile-long walk back to the workshop. So he came down the road, and just in front of the museum where he'd heard the noise, there was a puddle of water. Now, obviously a puddle of water, there's nothing weird about that, but it hadn't rained for about a week prior to that. So he thought that was strange. So he said I kept walking, and as I kept walking, I was hearing like metal clanking. And he heard this metal clanking, and very often the flagpoles, when the flags are out, you can hear the clips hitting against the pole. However, the farther away he got, the louder it became. And he said as he was walking towards the sound, more puddles started to show up. And he said that just as he was on what he thought was the sound was right in front of him, it stopped, but there was a large puddle of water. Now, this sounds pretty strange and it doesn't make any sense. However, there have been sightings in the area of a drowned Highlander, okay, a Scottish soldier who was wrapped in chains and drips water. So, not only at this site, but just down the road, there's a well-known haunted house that's been in the newspapers as one of the most haunted areas in the North Country. And he's been seen there as well. So, why is he dripping water? Why is he wrapped in chains? So the Highlanders were out of Scotland, and the Scottish obviously were not English. So they didn't have the same kind of respect that English soldiers had in the British Army. So they were very often tortured or punished by the British officers. So a very common form of punishment was called keel hauling. And what keel hauling is when they torture you, they wrap you in chains and they drag you behind a ship in the water. And it's for torture, but sometimes, very often, people died. So with this site being right on the lake, that very well could have happened. We know for a fact that there is a Scottish regiment placed here, so we know that the Highlanders were active here. We know that they were in the area. So, like I said, there's been sightings here. There's also been sightings elsewhere on the peninsula. So, who knows? All right, so the next story you're going to hear, if you follow the lanterns, we'll go up to the entrance of the British fort, and that's where the next one will be.